time. Apologize for the video quality. I really need to get a fucking camera. Um, as far as my usual format, where it's like a podcast, it's really just a recording thrown on YouTube. My software that I use to do that, I haven't put it back on my computer. Anyways, enough about that. It doesn't matter. This is kind of like just a hey, I'm back. I'm going to make my normal pods that I usually do now that the season is right around the corner. But I did want to talk about a few FSU related topics today, and the first one being the head coach watch list. Have you guys seen this Coach of the Year watch list? I've heard Jeff Cameron talk about it. I've heard a couple other people talk about it. Basically, I'm gonna get right to it. Jimbo's not on the Coach of the Year watch list. There's about 19 assholes on this list, and he's not one of them. You got guys like, who else is on there? Swamp Donkey's on there. You got Paul Christ, and a slew of other schmucks. But Jimbo's not on there. That's just hilarious to me. And that leads me into another discussion. I was having this on Twitter today with a couple guys. It's cordial, nothing going at each other's throats or anything. All three FSU fans, actually. But the one guy was lamenting about recruiting, how it's been a little slow, even though it's freaking July, and pointing out Ohio State's sick class and how Urban's just killing it, even for him. And I just pointed out the obvious, and I think that's a big disconnect with keeping it real fans. I think that's the biggest problem is they keep comparing FSU and Jimbo to Urban and Ohio State and Saban and Bama. He's not. He's not those two coaches. Those are two Hall of Fame coaches. I mean, Saban's a lock, and Myers, he's probably a lock too, let's be honest. I mean, 3 titles at 2 different schools. Okay? So stop hand-wringing over how FSU's not on their level and how they're going to catch those two. It's not going to happen. They'll get close as far as recruiting goes, but as far as staying on their level, it's going to be that's damn near impossible. Those are 2 of the best coaches of their generation. All right, and I think that's the problem. Like I said, a lot of these keeping it real fans have. That's the disconnect. They get pissed when Jimbo's not 11-1, or they get pissed when they don't have a top 5 class in fucking July. Get over it. Accept reality. Doesn't mean that I don't think Jimbo and company should strive for that. No, of course not. Shoot for the moon. If you miss, you're still amongst the stars, however that fucking saying goes. But I'm also not going to continue to beat my head up against the wall and be disappointed that FSU's not on their level on a consistent basis. It's those 2 year in and year out. It is what it is. Accept reality. And sorry for the laptop moving. It's just sitting on my lap. Moving along, I guess talk a little recruiting because this is piggybacking off the head coach talk. All right, it's July, people. It's fucking July. All right, calm down. If by signing day FSU doesn't have a class somewhere around the top 5, all right, then come at me or come at FSU fans for saying, hey, what's going on? What's going on? Jimbo losing it? Is he washed up? All right, the class isn't where you'd like it to be right now. I think there's 7 4-stars committed and 6 or 7 3-stars, so not exactly killing it. But again, it's July. There's probably another dozen recruits. There's a ton of 4 and 5-star guys that FSU is still on. I'm not going to go over them right now. I don't like to talk in-depth recruiting because, again, it's fucking July. But I will talk about one recruit. And if you follow FSU closely in recruiting, you probably know who I'm about to talk about. That's 5-star quarterback Justin Fields. This recruitment is nuts. It's insane. I'm just sitting back and watching everyone's world fucking burn on social media. Every day in my timeline, Justin Fields. A couple tweets down, Justin Fields. Justin Fields. People, step back from the fucking ledge. The kid's going to decide when he's going to decide. All right? And if you don't know who Justin Fields is, just in case those of you stumble upon this and don't know, he's a 5-star quarterback out of Kennesaw, Georgia, which is 5-6 hours away from Tallahassee. He is currently the #1 dual threat quarterback. I think 24/7 moved him up to the #1 overall player recently. Just an insane prospect, like that generational, well, potentially generational quarterback that could help FSU, close that gap I was talking about between Ohio State and Bama. And he was committed to Penn State for the longest, decommitted in June sometime, and then immediately when decommitted, a lot of people started jumping on the Florida Gators bandwagon as the team that would get him. Well, it's gone from that to oh, he's a silent to Georgia. Oh, he's fucking really likes Auburn because of Newton. I think he might go to FSU because of Jimbo's ability to develop quarterbacks. It's just been all over the place. Newsflash, nobody truly knows where the fuck this kid's going to go. Nobody. Not one person knows where this kid's going to go except him and his family. And they might not even know yet. The kid is making all these visits. He initially made visits right out the gate when he decommitted, bounced from Florida, Auburn, Georgia. And now he's kind of making return visits, as he said he would do. He told Bud Elliott from formerly Tomahawk Nation, now I guess he claims just SB Nation, whatever. By the way, Bud, you're no longer in first place in the Roto League. Fuck you. Anyways, he's bounced all around. And every day on Twitter, that's another thing. Do not tweet recruits. Don't do it. If you want to follow them, I can get that. I'll admit, I have clicked the follow button on recruits. Why? Because I'm not paying 24/7 or Rivals for a fucking subscription. That's what Twitter's for. I can just click follow, or I can type in his name in the search thing and see the recent hits. And that's all you gotta do. But don't tweet at these recruits begging them to come to your school. It's weird. It's just fucking weird. Not to mention, by all accounts, you talk to recruiting analysts, the kids don't like it. They're not huge fans of it. It gets old. Imagine tweeting something out and having a ton of people essentially beg you to come to their school. Now, the most recent update, of course, was yesterday, 5 in the afternoon. Fields had repeat visited Auburn and Georgia, I think, a week ago or something. And people wondered, when's he going to come back to FSU? Is he going to come visit again? Because if he doesn't visit again, chances are FSU's got zero shot. But if he at least stays in contact with the staff, visits the school, all right, maybe there's a chance. So Florida Gators have their Friday Night Lights thing, which is a big recruiting kind of party, for lack of a better term. It's a football camp, and they do a bunch of shit. And it's long been known that he was going to go to that. But yesterday, out of the blue, supposedly, Fields visits FSU, 5, 6 in the afternoon. Of course, Twitter's going wild, oh shit. Again, doesn't mean he's going to FSU, doesn't mean he's not. But it's good to have the visit, okay? Because as it stands now, let's say Francois has a good pro year. Now you're looking at a sophomore, Bailey Hockman, and a sophomore, James Blackman, going into 2018. Two guys, which, knock on wood, assuming Francois doesn't miss any time this year, will have never started a game. And beyond that, there's just not a ton of quality depth. So at the very least, you'd like to get this kid for depth because, again, I haven't looked at recruiting closely because it's July. But to my knowledge, I don't think FSU has a QB recruit. And that's been another point of contention, another fucking heated discussion between the Keeping It Reals and other FSU fans. And here's the thing. You don't have to be a Keeping It Real or a fanboy. You can be in the middle and be rational and have half a fucking brain. But a lot of these people on Twitter, they're one or the other. They're all FSU fanboy or they're Keeping It Reals. But that discussion about Jimbo and FSU's inability to recruit elite quarterbacks, I mean, it does have some merit. But let's not forget he had 2 blue chippers on this roster until one got booted for punching a chick at a bar, and the other one got booted for, I'd rather not say. He is a teenager after all. Let's just having a little too much fun. Let's put it that way. Okay, so that set them back. So they do need to make sure they get another blue chip recruit this cycle. Hockman was a 4-star, but he's not considered like elite. He's considered like he won't blow the game for you, once it comes time for him to play on the collegiate level. But you need another guy. And this guy, by all accounts, is is a difference maker. Maybe not year one, he could redshirt, that's fine. But this is a guy that could take a program like to the top, potentially. Think Watson, Winston, guys like that. I'm not saying he is those guys, but he has that potential. He's for those of you who know, he's 6'3", 220, got the size, a true dual threat. He runs a 4.5, and so all these schools and all these fans are just going nuts for him. I'm just sitting back and just watching it. It's just like he's gonna commit when he commits. Now, who do I personally think he's gonna go to? Of course, I don't have any sources. I'm not gonna pretend I do. I'm just a fan that tries to stay informed on what the fuck's going on with the team, recruiting or otherwise. And let's say from like a paper choice, what looks good on paper the most? And I'll not sound like a fanboy here, but it's Florida State. If you're a quarterback, Auburn, they send quarterbacks, other than Cam Newton, who would have got drafted no matter where he went. Does Auburn have a recent track record of sending QBs to the NFL? No. Florida's QB play has been trash. Georgia already has Eason and Fromm on the roster, both like 5-star guys. And I guess you want to include Southern Cal and Bama, but I don't think they're really in it. They came late to the party. So if it's really out of Georgia, Auburn, and Florida, and Florida State, out of those 4, FSU makes the most sense if this kid truly wants to go to the NFL and get developed to get drafted highly. And I know the counterpoint by rivals. Oh, look at all these FSU QBs. They suck in the NFL. La, la, la. That's irrelevant. Use your brain. That's fucking irrelevant. Jimbo's job is to get them there and to get them paid. And that's exactly what he's done as FSU's head coach. He got Ponder and EJ drafted in the first round. That's all you need to say. I didn't think they were first-round draft picks when they were playing at FSU. They were good college quarterbacks. They won in the first round. So there's no denying Jimbo's track record for getting QBs drafted compared to those other schools in recent seasons. Then you look at the depth chart. Okay, Florida might get the nod in that. But here's the thing about Florida. They're selling desperation. At least that's what it appears to me. Hey, please come help us. You're all we need. As opposed to FSU can come to the table, which I assume this would be the recruiting pitch, and they can say, hey, come to Florida State. We'll help you. Because everything on Florida's end is like, we need you because we're a quarterback away. And seemingly they've been a quarterback away for like 7 years. Okay, and I already mentioned the other one. Auburn's, first of all, they have Stidham, who could stay for 2018. Maybe not. And they're not conducive to producing NFL quarterbacks. Their system just not designed for that. And like I said, Georgia has 2 studs already on the roster. But it does have proximity. So there's pros and cons to each. Okay. But this kid has talked about, like most 5-star quarterback recruits, getting developed. And so far, Jimbo's the only coach he's thrown for. So far. That could change, who knows, today. But it would behoove him, if he truly wants to get developed, to go to Florida State. And the depth chart there's not huge roadblocks in the way. Worst case scenario, he sits a year while Francois is a redshirt junior. Worst case. There's also a chance, like I said, Francois could leave after this year if he has a good one. Maybe for the same reasons Travis Rudolph left. Hey, I'm not getting any taller. I am what I am. I'm eligible. Let's go. All right. So I think based on paper, he should pick Florida State. But again, there's a myriad of factors. Truly, from reading all the nonsense from all the publications and recruiting services, it's probably truly down to 3 schools: Georgia, Auburn, and Florida State. Those are the 3 I always hear. Like, who do you think he's down? His dad's cousin's, neighbor that knows somebody that works at the gas station told me that, But anyway, those are the three schools I always hear. UF has seemingly slid down the pecking order, although he's supposed to visit there tonight. Maybe that could change things. But just reading the tea leaves, I think it's FSU, Georgia, and Auburn. I think those are the three. And it's going to be a long while till he commits. It sounds like he's going to take his time, revisit all these schools, and then make a decision, as he should. There's no rush. But it is atypical for five-star quarterbacks to commit late in the recruiting cycle. Not that this is extremely late, but it is kind of late for five-star QBs. Typically, they recruit early, and then they become like the bell cow for the class. They try and get kids to follow them. Hopefully, he commits to FSU. Could be a while. Maybe that's something you want to pay attention to. I suggest you don't. It's a waste of fucking time. It is quite entertaining, though, seeing these fan bases go at each other's throats and start comparing like the head-to-head series and all this dumb shit. And this prospect is like, he's tagged in every one of these. He's got to be just like shaking his head like, fuck these people. Yeah, I've never seen grown men, worry about a teenager this much in my life. Okay, moving along. We're at 16 minutes. I'm going to try and only keep it 5-10 more minutes. This is the first one back, so got a lot to talk about. But I know you guys can't stand me for that long. I mean, I can hardly watch YouTube videos for this long. But as usual, I always go late, and as usual, I always mention that I'm going to go late. So, moving along. Let's talk about the roster. All right, well, I'll just try and breeze through this real quickly as I can, which is to say, not very quickly. The defensive side. Most of you probably know that have followed closely. This defense is going to be stacked. Of course, I thought that last year, but this defense has more experience than last year, save for, of course, losing Walker and White. It has a good amount of experience and a great amount of talent. You start at the D-line. You got Sweat on one end, who really, once he showed he was healthy at the end of the year, he came on strong. What do you have, like 4 or 5 sacks in the last 4 or 5 games? As some of you recall, at one point in his recruiting cycle, or during his recruiting cycle, so to speak, he was the number 1 player in the country. Then he blew out his knee. He was a 5-star guy, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, when he finally showed he was healthy at the end of last year, he showed how explosive he can be. So that's sick on one side. Of course, you're going to have Brian Burns. I don't think, based on the recently released roster that gives heights and weights, still doesn't seem like he's going to be a 3-down guy, because he's like 220, 225, like he's barely gained any weight. But that didn't stop him last year. He had 9.5 sacks. So he'll, at the very least, continue to come in on passing downs. And then you go in the interior. And that's where you got to get excited. Is the interior. That's where the game is typically won or lost. And you have Derek Nottie coming back, which is, like, I didn't expect him to come back like this time last year. Like, oh, this is his last year. He's fucking snotty. He's a fucking beast. But he played portions of the year hurt. And kind of like Sweat, when he got healthy, it was a huge difference in his production, obviously. And he just started manhandling people on the interior of the line. And right next to him is Christmas. Both these guys are, of course, 4-star. Of course, Burns was a 4/5-star on some sites. Sweat, obviously, as I mentioned, was a 5-star. And then underneath them, all 4 of them, you still have quality depth there. Joshua Kando. Some publications had him as recruiting services had him as like the number 1 weak side defensive end. I don't know how you make him a weak side defensive end, but he was a 5-star. But the guy's 6'6", 250 already like 2'6", 250. This looks like an absolute animal. He provides depth. Of course, Jacob Pugh as a pass rusher can provide depth. Who else am I forgetting here? Marvin Wilson, the number 1 defensive tackle in the country. Again, he's a true freshman, and sometimes it's hard for true freshman defensive tackles, I should say, to contribute unless they're just ridiculously good. But at the ACC kickoff, which is their media days last week or whenever it was, someone asked Derwin James about Marvin Wilson. Like, what do you think of him? And his response, paraphrasing, was something like, if you guys think I'm a freak, watch out. That's pretty telling. But Marvin's massive. 6'5", 330. Based on the recent pictures from this camp this week, it looked like he's already changed his body shape in some ways. He doesn't look as flabby or as much baby fat. And I'm forgetting guys like Frederick Jones. I'm probably forgetting Darvin Taylor, who was a 4-star kid, and there's probably at least 2 more guys. Wally Aime was a highly sought out guy. The defensive line has quality depth and talent. Like, it's insane. You lose Walker, which sucks, but they still have enough to cause havoc up front. And I'm not including Derwin James in that, who will obviously blitz on and off throughout every game, probably. Then you move to the linebacking core. You still got Hoskins and Thomas. There was some worry that Thomas might not be academically eligible, which wouldn't be a shock, but what it sounds like, he's good to go. And if he plays like he did towards the end of the year, especially, of course, the bowl game where he had 15, 16 tackles against Michigan, he's a stud. Of course, a former 5-star himself. He moved to the secondary. Marquez White's gone. However, the secondary's still loaded. Taylor's going to bounce around. 5-star guy, number 1 cornerback. When he came out, he's a sophomore now. Tavares McFadden, what is he? A redshirt sophomore now, tied for the lead in interceptions nationally last year. And oh yeah, Derwin fucking James. That's all you got to say. It's like, what's that? Is that Pulp Fiction? I think that's Pulp Fiction, where they're trying to figure out how to clean up the mess because they accidentally shot that dude in the face while they're driving around. And Samuel Jackson calls Marcellus Wallace for help, and he tells him he's sending the wolf. He's like, oh, the wolf? Nigga, that's all you had to say. Sorry, white dude with the N-word. I know. I know. Embarrassing. I tried. But yeah, it's like that. Derwin James, that's all you got to say. That's all you got to say. As a true freshman, when you have 90-plus tackles, a few sacks, a few forced fumbles, lined up all over the field, and people think that the FSU fans are too hyped on him. Well, apparently we're not the only one. You look at CBS, Sports Illustrated, all these people that come out with like watch list and like Heisman hype and all that crap. He's at the top, near the top of the list in all of these, on all these sites, all these services. The kid is a beast. So knock on wood, he stays healthy. Terrence Marshall, 4-star kid a long time ago. He will be suspended for the first half of the Bama game, which is that's just ridiculous. If you recall, he got ejected in the Michigan game in the second half, which means he has to miss the first half of Bama a whole season later. Ridiculous, I know. And that could hurt the first half. And I'll get into Bama in a second. But I'm not going to go any further down the depth chart on the defensive side. I mainly named the starters. It's loaded. Talent, there's experience. There is no reason, no good reason, no rational, logical reason that this defense should struggle the way it did at the beginning of last year. If it does, Kelly, get the fuck out. I said it last year, I'll say it again. This is like, he just got a raise, before last season. So I know it's probably difficult to for Jimbo to go to the administration and be like, hey, the guy I wanted you to give more money to, he's terrible, can you get rid of him? So it might be hard to get rid of him, but seriously, this has got to be the year where Jimbo looks at that talent and says, if we underperform this year, I got to make a change. So they don't need to come out and look lost, not get lined up correctly. If they're in zone, be confused on which receiver they're supposed to cover or which area they're supposed to cover, or the lack of effort that you saw at the beginning of the year. If any of that is pervasive on this defense this year, you got to go, because Kelly hasn't proven much of shit to me. What he took over in 2014, that defense had NFL talent all over it. It was pedestrian to FSU standards. 2015, the numbers were good, but if you recall, played a ton of shitty offenses in 2015. Last year, at the end of the year, played very well. Again, coincided with playing a lot of subpar offenses. So this defense is too talented to suck at any point in the year. All right? And if you get beat, get beat. That's fine. If another man on the other side of the ball beats you, don't look incompetent. That's all I ask, and that's what I asked last year. Don't look incompetent. show effort, and the rest will take care of itself. So, enough about Kelly. Fucker. Moving on to the offensive side of the ball. Start with the quarterback as usual. Where else do you start? Francois. There's a lot of people on the fence. You're either Francois is going to take a big step, or you're like, I think he's reached his ceiling. All right, I'm not in the first side that thinks he's just going to be a Heisman candidate, a true Heisman candidate. But to think he's reached his ceiling going into his second year as starting quarterback is asinine. All right, he struggled last year. There's no doubt. 58% is not going to cut it if you want to make it to the playoffs. That's a bad college football completion percentage. It's especially bad in a Jimbo offense. I mean, E.J. Manuel, his career completion percentage was, I think, 65 plus. Jameis's was like 67. Ponders was mid-60s. Like, even Golston, as much as that experiment didn't work out, look at his numbers. He took care of the ball. I think his completion percentage was near the mid-60s. That's basically been the floor for a Jimbo quarterback. And going into year two, I do think he can step up. If he can get it from 58 to 63, somewhere in that neighborhood, this team is going to be markedly better on offense. They're going to be more consistent. You're not going to see the first down where he misses an open guy or makes a poor throw on an intermediate route, and now it's second and long, and you're fucked. Okay, if he can start hitting more checkdowns, getting rid of the ball more quickly, and this is stuff a lot of people have already talked about. I'm not reinventing the wheel here by saying this, but I am just stating my case that I am on the side that thinks that he will take a step up. I don't think he's going to take a massive step up and be, some Heisman contender. That'd be great, but he should improve. There's no doubt in my mind, especially when you consider his work ethic. Moving into the guys in front of him, that is probably the biggest question on this team, not just the offense, the entire team, and whether it's going to kick ass and take names, go to the playoff, or lose 2 or 3 games again. It's largely dependent on the offensive line. Right now, the center, I guess, is going to be Eberle if he's healthy going into fall camp. Most people want to see Bavion Johnson. He was the number 1 center coming out of high school. He's a sophomore now, second year. He obviously offers more upside, you would think, based on what you read and what you hear. But facing Bama week 1, Jimbo wouldn't surprise me if he went to Eberle, assuming he's healthy, because Eberle had hip surgery in the offseason, which that can't be fun if you're an offensive lineman that squats all the fucking time. And then right guard should be Dickerson, and I think just earlier this week I read that he's a full go for fall camp, so that's good because he had a torn ACL during the season last year. So that's pretty important because he might be the most talented offensive lineman they have. He was like a 4 or 5 star depending on the recruiting services. Right tackle likely be Rick Leonard. He started the year there, struggled. Barack Rubel came in with this, wearing his pair of roller skates that he does. He sucked ass. Leonard regained his job, and towards the end of the year, showed signs of improvement. So if he can be competent to solid, I don't think he's just going to suddenly be like an All-American right tackle, but if he can be solid and show that improvement at the end of the year was something he can sustain, then we're looking not too bad on the right side with Dickerson and Leonard. Like, that's serviceable. Eberle is still a question mark on pass pro. Not as horrible as some fans like to make out. I mean, God knows I got frustrated at different points last year, but I try and step back in the offseason and be like, all right, well, yeah, not as bad, but still not up to FSU standards, which, coming from the head coach's mouth, is supposed to be elite. I don't think any of us think Eberle is elite. All right? I hope it's Bavion. That's my 2 cents. I'd rather go with talent over the experience. Maybe that's wrong coming out the gates versus Bama, but that's kind of where I'm at. I guess it's kind of always liking the backup quarterback. Kind of like that. Left guard ought to be Minshew. We all heard multiple off seasons how this guy's a road grader, this guy's a beast. Well, he finally was able to get on the field and start a handful of games, and the coaches weren't full of shit. he looked good. He looked like a fucking mauler. So knock on wood, he stays healthy. He's had concussion issues in the past. Left tackle, that's up for debate. Some people are assuming it's Josh Ball, who was a part of the 2016 recruiting class with Bevion, another four-star guy. He's like insanely tall. I think he's like 6'7", 6'8". So it could be him, maybe Juwan Williams, who's about the same height and is from the same class and a four-star as well. This is kind of the year where that 2016 recruiting class, and I heard Jeff Cameron mention this on his, and it's always funny because like this is why I wanted to record because I'm sure Cameron has these conversations with like his co-host off air all the time, and that's why I started this whole pod. It's like I talk to friends or myself, and I'm like I could record this. I talk about the same shit, but anyway, that's either here nor there. But he was talking how the 2016 offensive line class that we all loved and lauded, was it 6 total guys? 4 of them were 4-stars, all like massively fucking huge people, like average of 6'4", 310 as incoming true freshmen. Like this is the year that we could see 2 or 3 of them on that line, and we're gonna need them week 1. Gonna need them pretty badly, and I'll do with Alabama like a more in-depth like preview. Right now, I haven't done my homework on Bama. The little I do know is they lost, a number of guys up front in their front 7, and that of course it's Bama, so it's probably not gonna matter. They'll reload. You think FSU reloads? We bring in 4 and 5-star. It just doesn't compare to how they reload. Like, oh, we've had a 5-star sitting on the pine for 3 years. He's ready now. Come on in, Deshaun Hand, or whoever it is. But I'll get into that later. Moving to the outside of the O-line, or just outside, is the tight ends. Rizzo, or Cubs fan in me. Izzo is about as solid as they come. I'm not worried about him. Saunders, now he could take a step. He's got potential. He flashed it a few times. I think he's that classic former basketball player thing that people get excited about. And I think Antonio Gates has ruined that for a lot of players. Hey, well, you played basketball before. How come you're not awesome? Because, Gonzalez and Antonio Gates. And having said that, he could have a big year. I don't mean as far as, like, volume, but he could have just a bigger impact than he did. He just showed some flashes. I think he could play a bigger role this year. Moving to the outside, let's call it a 3 wide receiver set. You're going to have Tate, Nooney, and probably Gavin as the top 3. Of course, Tate and Gavin, you like seeing those guys at the field at the same time. They're both 6'3" and higher, both 200 pounds plus. And then you got Nooney, 5'11" guy, little guy that plays like a big man. The issue with them is obviously experience. They don't have a ton. Yeah, we saw Tate and especially Nooney do some special things, but can they do that on a consistent basis? As Jimbo would say, can they get in the right spots? Can they run the right routes? Know the fucking route tree and all that bullshit? We don't know if they can do that from game 1 to game 12 yet. Hope so. I do like the talent of those 3 compared to the top 3 this time last year. Like, did that excite anybody? This time last year was Rudolph, Bobo, and Kermit. You got what? A 5'8" guy, 5'9" guy, and a 5'11" guy? None of which I think ran under a 4.5. Oh, except for Kermit. I think he ran a 4.4 something. But even 4.4 relative to his like 5.8 supposed track speed was like, okay, it's good. I actually expected more. But Rudolph and Bobo, they didn't blow the 40 away, and they're not tall. So it's like, how does it happen at FSU? And that's another tangent I could get on is Dossie. But I'm not going to do it right now. The guy needs to go. That's it. I've had people argue that. I don't know how you can still argue that after he's been there a decade. 2 wide receivers have been drafted in a decade. You can guess who those probably were. Rashad Green, Kelvin Benjamin. I don't know a fuck thing about being a wide receiver coach. I think I could get them to the NFL. And that might not be the best way to evaluate a wide receivers coach, because Lord knows I'm not at the practices. I don't see how he interacts. But in 10 years at a place like Florida State, only 2 wide receivers get drafted. That's a joke. That's a fucking joke any way you slice it. That's fucking ridiculous to me. And not to mention, you hear whispers, you hear tales of him not being the most arduous recruiter. He doesn't stay on kids as much as he should. Not that he's like lazy per se, but he doesn't realize recruiting needs to be played at like volume 11 at all times to compete with the big boys. And that's just whispers. That could be untrue, but it wouldn't shock me because he, I think, recruits the Tampa area exclusively. No, maybe not exclusively, but I think that's one of his main areas. And historically, by historically mean the last decade, FSU hasn't exactly hit the Tampa area out of the park. They've had some kids, no doubt. I'm not going to say they haven't got any blue chips from that area. But by and large, it's been a little underwhelming. So, Dossie, wouldn't be sad if you went. What do we got left? Running backs. Now running backs get me excited. And some of you might be saying, what are you talking about? Cook's gone. What the fuck? Still looking forward to that group of running backs. Patrick is probably the likely starter. I think what was he? I think he was a 5-star in some publications. He might have got dropped down to a 4-on-1. Anyway, the guy, when he did play last year, I thought he played well. He's one of your bigger backs, power backs. He's not a speed guy, but he has good speed for his size. He's got to be, 6'2" at least, 230 plus. He ran hard when he played. He just didn't play much last year because there's a guy named Dalvin Cook toting the rock. However, that being said, I'm surprised Jimbo didn't play him a little more. Patrick, that is. Integrate him a little more, knowing Cook was going to, piece the fuck out. That's neither here nor there. He may or may not be the starter game one. The next guy I'm talking about, he could very well be the guy to carry the ball for the first time against Bama. And that's Cam Akers. I made a video of Cam Akers when he was about to commit, or maybe after he committed. If you haven't, look it up. Not my video, but just look up Cam Akers highlights if you haven't watched him yet. He's 5'11", 213, and he's rocked up. He's just absolutely rocked up. How are you 17, 18? He's got power. He's got speed. He's got vision, could maybe improve a little bit, but people said the same thing about Cook, and he turned out all right. And I'm not saying he's Cook, but this guy is one of the highest rated, or I think maybe the highest rated offensive recruit FSU's ever gotten, if memory serves. If I'm wrong on that, someone comment below and correct me on that. And while I'm talking about commenting below, feel free to, at any time, leave a comment. I love just creating a college football dialogue, talking it now that we're, less than 40 days now till Bama. Even the trolls, I welcome the trolls. It doesn't bother me. I'll feed you guys. I'll feed the trolls. I don't care. Sometimes I stoop down to y'all's level. Doesn't matter to me. This is all for fun. I don't take it personally. But yeah, Akers can catch out of the backfield. Just looks fluid as hell when you see him run. And by all accounts, during spring practices, the coaches were just lauding about this guy's players. This kid's ridiculous. And in the spring game, he showed out. What do you have, 90 yards rushing on 10 carries, whatever it was. Taking big hits from Derwin and not falling down. Getting around the corner with ease. Making people miss. Falling forward on short runs. He appears to be the total package. So really stoked about him. And then beyond him, it's not like you have scrubs after those two. And that's the thing. There's a little tangent here too. James Cook, Dalvin Cook's little brother. I think might be a consensus 4-star now. He was a 5-star some places. He decommitted from FSU. People think that's likely due to the fact that he does not want to play in his brother's shadow. And how could you blame him? I mean, Dalvin Cook's the best running back at FSU that they've ever had, mind you. All due respect to work done. And the depth chart that I'm talking about right now. You got 5-star Patrick, or he was at least one point during his recruitment. 5-star Akers. Kalen LeBourne is a 5-star incoming freshman. Zakondre White is a 4-star running back, incoming freshman. Sophomore Amir Razul was a 4-star guy. Just those guys right there. five blue chip running backs. I think FSU is okay that, as far as that position goes. I think they'll be all right. And I will say this, regardless of who it is, as much as the offensive line gets like shed on by fans and media, they can run block. That's never seemed to have been the problem. Pass pro is the issue. Pass pro is the issue. So whether it's Akers, Patrick, or whoever starts, the run blocking for them should be good. At least I think. I hope. Hope it remains that way. If not, we're fucked. I was going to go into Bama matchup a little bit, but as I said before, I think I'm just going to do a whole separate thing. And this is, we're 40 minutes in now. I think I'm going to wrap it up. We've gone on, long enough. I just wanted to touch on some things that were on my mind, and since it had been a while, I decided to let this fucker ride. Anyway, I'll start to make these more frequently. Hopefully, with it'll probably be in the normal setup where you don't see me, you just hear my voice or whatever. I mean, this is the big reason I don't get on camera, because I need to get an actual camera. I have an SLR, but I haven't fucked with it yet to hook it up to the laptop and do all that. But Lord knows this laptop cam ain't gonna get it done. It's blurry as shit. You got the sun glaring in here. So I'll try and get back to the normal format. Those of you that have asked, I appreciate you guys. AJ and was it Carlos Finch? Just a couple guys asked me in the past few weeks, "Hey, when are you gonna do videos again?" I appreciate that. As I said before, I don't care if I have 2 followers or 2 million. As long as you guys want to talk, and I don't mean just AJ and Carlos, but anybody is watching and interacting, and there's a dialogue about college football, FSU specifically, even better, then I will start making these again and try and be fairly regular in doing so. All right, well, thank you for watching. This has been another Semicast. I'm out.